So welcome everybody. Great to see some familiar faces as well as a few new ones. Just a few bits to go through before we get into it. A couple of introductions to make as always. Firstly, just to introduce the team at United Sellers. Mark, if you can just move us on one. Firstly, we've got Jane Moore, Head of Events. Welcome, Jane.
Evening, everyone.
Of course, we've got Mark, our Head Wine Buyer. Welcome, Mark.
Good evening, all. Thank you for joining us.
And our expert in all things European wines, Alistair Cooper, Master of Wine. As a short introduction, Alistair writes for Jancis Robinson, Decanter, as well as a few other publications. And as he's already stated, is a bit of an epic wine judge as well, and is judging at the moment. So great to have you on board this morning or evening, Ali.
It's nice to be here. I've dashed up to London, got here a bit early, sat up in the back before going to taste wines from Moldova to Brunello to all over the shop today, Canada, everything. So it's going to be a good day, but it's great to get a quarter of an hour or so with you guys before.
Fantastic.
Appreciate it, mate.
Now, our two guest speakers today, we're very lucky to have. Firstly, we have Clara Davison. By way of introduction to Clara, after doing her degree in art history, she held various positions in the wine industry, including hospitality, distribution, and wholesale, and currently represents some fantastic wineries over here in Australia, including actually Domaine Huet and Bernard Baudry. So great to get your insights this evening, Clara.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So Clara will be introducing wine number 2, which is the Huet. Now, joining us a little bit later on in the tasting, we have Mathieu Baudry, I should say. Where do you start with this producer? Absolutely fantastic. He is the son of Bernard Baudry. He joined the family domain in 2001 after studying winemaking in Bordeaux and Burgundy, with internships actually over here in Tasmania as well. So really looking forward to his expertise as well as and when he jumps in. So moving forward, just a couple of bits of admin for those who have come to our tastings before. You're probably seeing the yawns here. So start pouring and doing whatever else whilst we just cover this. Between each wine, we'll do a quick quiz question. So all you need to do is text in with your name, your number, and your email with the answer that you guess. One correct answer gets you 3 entries into the Wheel of Wine quiz. An incorrect one gets you 1. And then we'll draw it at the end of the evening. So good luck with that. And then just finally, we want these tastings to be as interactive as possible. So we really encourage questions and comments. I'm sure lots of people have got some great anecdotes on the Loire. So we'd love to hear them. Either use the chat box and we can get those directed to the experts, or feel free to unmute at any time and join the conversation. But moving forward, I'm going to hand over to Ali to introduce Loire and then take us into the Andre des Sancerre.
Good morning, good evening, everyone. As I say, great to see you guys and to be here in London today. So I've got the task of introducing. I'm going to try and do the Loire Valley in 5 minutes. So it's going to be quick fire, quite a bit of information, and then we'll taste the Andre des Sancerre and leave you in the capable hands of our wonderful guests this evening. Great to see faces here again. Good luck tonight in the Wheel of Wine, Danny. I think you'd won recently, but let's see how you guys go. So the Loire Valley, we've seen here, viticulture has existed since the 1st century. It is the 3rd largest wine region in France in terms of volume, and predominantly white. So 52% of the production in the Loire Valley is white, 26 red, and the balance is sparkling. So it's really sparkling and white wines that drive this region. It's hard to define the terroir, as you'll see when we look at the map. It's so varied. There are 51 appellations covering, I think it's 500 kilometers. So it's an incredibly varied region. And I think it's probably fair to say that, here it says that how important the Loire was. And I think it's fair to say that over the past 30 years, the importance or the popularity of the Loire Valley outside of France has waned a little bit, because the market, as you know, demanded heavier wines, specifically heavier red wines, largely due to parkerization. And what they specialize in the Loire is these crisper, lighter styles of both white and red. And I think, and Mark and I have talked about this lots, that's why I think that in Australia, certainly with your climate, more Loire wines should be drunk because they really fit the bill of the way the wine world is going towards lighter wines, but also, you know, your climate over there. So tonight we're going to be tasting 3 of the 4 major grape varieties. So we've got Sauvignon Blanc with the Sancerre, then we've got the Chenin with the Vouvray that I think you're going to look at, and then we've got Cabernet Franc with the Bourgogne that we're going to be looking at. There are other important grapes here. Pinot Noir is important, Gamay is important, Malbec, or Cotte as they can call it sometimes here, is important. But also the one region we're not going to be tasting is Muscadet, and that's a wine region I love. And again, this is something Mark and I have talked about. We should get some Muscadet over to you guys because I think it will really fit. So we're going to work quickly along the Loire Valley. So starting in the lower Loire, which is this area here that Mark's pointing out. So here we've got the area of Muscadet. And here the most important thing is this maritime influence. So here you've got literally salty, saline splattered wines. They're really light. They can be so light that actually they need to age them on their lees, so they're dead yeast, to give them a little bit of oomph. But I think they're beautifully mineral wines. We're not tasting those today, but we're going to be moving in towards the middle Loire. So that's the Anjou-Saumur region here. And here, this is where it gets interesting. Here we've got Chenin Blanc is the main white variety in Saumur, in Vouvray that you're going to be tasting, and we've also done some amazing sweet wines, which Mark will be talking about as well, I'm sure. And Cabernet Franc is king here. So this is where we're going to have the Bourgogne and the Chinon wines that make these beautifully fresh, red, leafy, crisp wines. And then we're heading into the Central Valley. So the climate has changed from very maritime in the Pays Nantais through to continental. So it actually gets quite a lot warmer. And then as you get into the central vineyards, it's a lot cooler. It's actually closer to Burgundy here than it is the rest of the Loire. So you're really not far from Burgundy, from Chablis. And here, there are great similarities, I think, between the two. So I suggest you pour the wine, and I'll tell you a little bit about Sancerre. This is going to be my first wine of probably about 100 today, so I'm going to savor this in a relaxed manner.
How does he mean to go on, mate?
You know, it's the things we have to do at 9:30 in the morning. So the central vineyards are the smallest, and as I said, the closest in style and geography to Burgundy. So here it's cool continental. So we have spring frosts, and frost can be a real issue here. But what really helps those frosts is these slopes. So the Sancerre is based, I think there's 12 or 13 villages around Sancerre. Interestingly enough, it used to be pretty much dominated by red grapes, so pretty much dominated by Pinot Noir, until that nasty little bug phylloxera that you'll all know about, that we've talked about lots, came along. And then when it was replanted, it was easier to plant with Sauvignon Blanc. There is some rosé made there, and there is some red Sancerre made, but really it's all about the white. It's all about the Sauvignon Blanc. And again, this is something that I've talked to Mark and the team in United. I'm not sure why Sancerre hasn't taken off in Australia like Chablis has, because obviously there was the big Sauvignon Blanc movement from New Zealand that swept the world, and Australia as well. Yet Sancerre offers a more refined, elegant, chalky style. And a lot of that is to do with the soils itself. So this Kimmeridgian soils that we've talked about before in Chablis is a band of soil that runs pretty much from Sancerre, from the central Loire and Chablis up to England, so up to the coast of England and up through the South Downs of England. And that's why we're now making some beautifully flinty, chalky wines over here. So there are 3 types of soil that are key in Sancerre. You have close to Sancerre, you have what they call silex, which is this flinty soil. And these create wines that are long, really long-lived and elegant, quite crisp styles. Then clay limestone, as you go a little bit further out, they can be even lighter and more delicate, need to be drunk a little bit more younger. And then you've got the western vineyards, which is pure limestone, and they're powerful, really powerful wines in terms of Sancerre. So looking at this wine particularly, so I think this André Desas Sancerre, I just showed it to Christelle, who runs the competition here, and she actually makes a wine in Muscadet. When I said I was doing this, she said, "Why are you not showing some Muscadet?" And she makes a beautiful wine there. So I hope she's not listening, but and I'd love to share that. Actually, I wonder if we can get that over to Australia. And I said I was doing this, and she said, "This is basically really benchmark Sancerre." So it's great to be able to show you what benchmark Sancerre is. There are different styles, but this is really classic, typical. The Desat family, here we go, one of the oldest wine growing families in Sancerre, excellent timing, been farming back to 1550, and I think they have 38 hectares. And what's nice about this wine is it is an expression of all of Sancerre. So they have vineyards in all the different parcels, and when put together, this is what I would call the ultimate sort of benchmark expression of Sancerre. And 2019 was a warm vintage. 18 and 19 was a warm vintage. But this paradox of 2019, which when I covered the Rhone, I think I told you guys about, and it's sort of happened all over France. In 19, a very warm vintage, yet still they managed to create these really fresh acidic wines. So they've got weight behind them, but they've also got great acidity. So let's have a look at this one. Sancerre, nearly always in stainless steel. It's all about maintaining that freshness, as you have with the majority of Sauvignon Blanc that we drink all over the world, such as in New Zealand. And I'll talk just briefly about the differences that you can see between Sancerre and Marlborough, because they're the two greatest expressions, in my opinion, of Sauvignon Blanc. So I often get a leafy, kind of almost minty character from Sancerre. As I said, this is quite a beefy vintage, so it's sort of more on it is quite rich on the palate. I think alcohol-wise is still only 13. You get that weight behind the wine. Despite the freshness, you can almost feel that chalky sort of weight coming behind it. And I think the difference, but people always say, why does Marlborough taste so overtly gooseberry, passion fruity, tropical, whereas Sancerre is far more that herbaceous, grassy, chalky style? I think a lot to do with that, and Jane might have some thoughts on this, is to do with the UV light and the day and the sunshine hours that you get in Marlborough. It's warmer, therefore the grapes, it's cool in the evening, but you tend to get more UV, so you get that richer, riper style. Here, frost is a problem, rain is a problem, and those chalky soils are really important for allowing good drainage of that water, but also those slopes, because of the frost, the cool air drains to the bottom, which is really important for avoiding those winter frosts. So that's the Loire and Sancerre in, I think I did it in about 6 minutes. So, and I'd love to see your thoughts on this wine and kind of the differences. Is this a style that we should be drinking more of in Australia? I say yes.
Without doubt. Yeah. Just to give you my
Not
2
an
cents
argument.
on it. Yeah, it's not even an argument. I mean, and one thing, Ali, that I'll give kind of our point of view on what I think has happened is it's almost like we've been burned by Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc in a few ways. And I think the Australian, we don't sell, just to give everyone a bit of clarity, we don't really sell this as a Sauvignon Blanc at all. We sell it as a Sancerre. We have to just kind of separate those two things apart from each other. Sorry. So we have it as it's Sancerre, and don't mention the SB word.
Okay. Well, it's interesting because Chablis obviously is so trendy the world over, and no more so I think than Australia. Everyone wants Chablis, everyone wants that flinty, lighter style Chardonnay, and do you think it's because of the sort of, as you say, the snobism now that's happened towards Sauvignon Blanc that people have shunned it, or why in the past did Sancerre not take off like Chablis 20 years ago, let's say 15, 20 years ago?
It's a great question. The other tricky one that we have as an importer is, and Clara, I'm sure you see this as well, it is more expensive to get things from the Loire than it is from kind of along the main route of the Rhone. So it's not much more expensive, but it's just that little bit more expensive, and it kind of, and that just adds up in the Australian taxation system, which we all love, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think that's true, and it's interesting. It'd be great to see some. I've seen some people put some things in the chat. Danny, like everyone, I think, is very over average New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc. I can totally.
Can I ask you, Ali, and perhaps Clara could jump in? Is that sentiment shared in the UK? Because obviously the UK is pretty impartial because it's doesn't really grow apart from, as you noted, very, very small amounts of sparkling. Is that sentiment on Kiwi Sauvignon Blanc shared, or I read that Sancerre, about 60% of it is exported. Does that mean the Brits are drinking it like they drink Kiwi savvy?
No, I mean, well, the answer is yes and no. So Kiwi Sauvignon is still massive here. You know, my mum drinks it. It's still, you know, it's been massive, and it doesn't show any signs of waning. In the trade, people are a bit more, dare I say it, snobby about it and kind of don't drink as much of it anymore. But the general public, consumers, are still drinking a huge amount. But Sancerre has always been not far off the kind of esteem that Chablis has over here. You know, people talk about Chablis and Sancerre in the same kind of vein. So it is essentially the you know, Chardonnay, you know, being Chablis and Sancerre being Sauvignon Blanc. It's still seen, I think, by both consumers and in the trade as being the pinnacle of Sauvignon Blanc. Whereas, you know, if you're going to drink mass market Sauvignon Blanc, everyone will go towards New Zealand and actually increasingly Chile as well, because it provides an even more affordable. If you go to a pub now and say I want a glass of Sauvignon Blanc, it will be Chilean or Marlborough. You know, that will be the question that they'll ask you, and the Chilean will be slightly cheaper than the Marlborough, and then you'll have down even on a list of 10, 12 wines in a pub, you'll nearly always find a Sancerre, you know, towards the middle top end, and that's a sort of treat of a Sauvignon Blanc for people. So, but, you know, both styles are still really, really important here. But there's only 3,000 hectares of grapes in Sancerre, so it's not huge, it's not small, it's not insignificant, but it's not huge.
Excellent. Well, I'm keen to open the floor and get some of our guests' feedback on this one. Daryl and the team, do you guys want to unmute and give us your thoughts firstly?
Yeah, I've always liked the Sancerre, and I've never liked a New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc, and somehow they're different. I think they're fantastic. This is a lovely wine, so really enjoying it.
Yeah, here, New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc.
Another New Zealander, New Zealander.
Absolute swell.
And
But you don't like
it's-
Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc either, do you?
No,
No.
I think it's wild. And like, even like Cloudy Bay, you kind of go, you know, should I try and like it? I'm going, yeah, no, not really.
Yeah,
I
we're
just
on the
think-
same page
I
there. I
like it.
thought so.
I just think dollar for dollar, because Cloudy Bay now is the same price as this, if not more expensive. And I think dollar for dollar, I think I know what I'd be drinking. Like, it's just
But I
twice
keep
the-
buying Australian wines that say it's just like a Sancerre, but like wines here that are local or New Zealand, and they're not. They're
No.
just like something that comes out of a cat.
I love the roundabout way you said that.
Artfully said.
Well done.
I think
Rob,
it's true. I think they've kind
go
of
on.
become a caricature of themselves, haven't they? A lot of Kiwi Sauvignons, they've kind of become that overblown, and consumers at the entry level like it because they can latch on to that really obvious kind of aromatic profile and taste profile. But after a while, it becomes a bit monotonous and a bit of a caricature. But it's good. It's good to hear that people can see the benefits of these more elegant styles, I would say.
But I will still every now and then have it if someone pours it when I'm out. But I think I've learned to like the taste of that thing that comes out of a cat.
Oh, no, it's not worth drinking. It's like when you go to one of those places that's red or white, and you're like, what's the white? And you're like, nah, I'll try the red. It's really always Sauvignon Blanc, and you just.
I think we've been a bit harsh personally. I think they're not that bad, some of them. But
No,
I think
you're
the
not being harsh
Sancerre-
enough. I have a childhood, like trauma of that smell. My mom loved those wines, and now if someone opens one in a room, I'm like, I can smell it from here. I know what that is.
It's interesting though, because when it first came out, like sort of 20 years ago, I remember drinking it and kind of liking it. And you're right, it sort of has become like a caricature of itself, because they took those flavors that were there, and they've just like really just amped them up. And it's just too much now. It's just on steroids.
Ali, Rob
So you
raised a really good point that some Kiwi producers are now replicating a fume sort of style. It's one region that we're not, or sub-region that we're not looking at this evening, Pouilly Fume. Just briefly, could you touch upon the differences between Sancerre and Pouilly Fume?
Okay. Do we mean fume as in the sort of oat style?
The Fume Blanc, the oat style, yeah.
You have Pouilly Fume, which is a sort of sub-region, which is it's probably hard to actually say the great differences. You have Cancy as well, which is another great village there. You know, the differences, maybe a little bit riper, I would say, don't always have the elegance. But I think what Rob's referring to is the Fume style, which actually came from Robert Mondavi in America, which was this sort of slightly, was an oaked style. So I think, you know, Cloudy Bay have done it with Takoko, Dog Point have done it with various things, as well as their insane reduction that they have in their wines as well. But, you know, they're great wines. So I think I personally, I've got to say, and I was going to say this as well, so Rob's brought a really good point out. I really do like a little bit of influence of oak on Sauvignon Blanc. I'm a big fan of white Bordeaux, and I think when done well, it can be a great thing. So I do like that slightly oaky style. You get this really sweaty, not the sort of BO sweat that you get from, you know, Marlborough Sauvignon or the cat, as you know, Daryl was saying. More this kind of slightly smoky style of Sauvignon, and I think that's a great thing to do. But again, consumers would be, you know, they're specialist wines because they really change the taste profile of those overt gooseberry things to being, for me, far more interesting and textural. And I think if a consumer who was expecting, you know, your average passion fruit bomb from those styles would be confused to get that different style. But I think they're great styles of wine as well.
Excellent. Brilliant. Well, I think that's a good time to move on to quiz question number 1. So Mark came up with this one, so I'm going to hand over to Mark to read it out to us.
For sure. So a little bit of a tricky one here. So which wine of the below 3 options does not contain any Sauvignon Blanc? So the first is Sauternes. The second is Puy Fumé, which I think we've just answered that one. And the last one is Vendange Tardif.
Yeah.
So shoot your answers to the number on your screen there, 0419 001 858. Give us your name, email address, and just say either 1, 2, or 3. And we will be adding these up at the end and then drawing the winner. Okay, so we'll give you a couple more seconds there. So Ali, I just wanted to say as well, thanks for dropping in, mate. I know you've got a busy, big day ahead, and I really appreciate your time, mate.
No, it's going to be great, and I look forward to we've got a whole series of things coming up, haven't we? So I look forward to seeing you guys soon. And yeah, sorry I can't stay for the whole tasting, but sounds like you're going to have some cracking wines coming up, and as am I. So everyone's going to have a good day or a good evening. So I'm going to sign off, but guys, thank you, and great to see you all. And yeah, as I say, look forward to seeing you again very, very soon. So take care.
Thank you, Ali. Thank you so
Cheers,
much.
Ali. Take care.
Good luck. Good
Enjoy.
luck with the 100 wines.
Good luck, Danny.
So Jane, how's the text looking? Getting some answers in?
Coming in, yeah. I think we give it maybe 20 more seconds and then we'll call it.
Clara, I'd like to bring you in just on the Sancerre piece. Do you have this wine in front of you? I wasn't sure if you...
I don't actually have that one, but we do have a couple of great Sancerre producers in the portfolio, so I'm very familiar with Sancerre.
And are you seeing it building within Australia, like more and more kind of demand on them?
Yeah, definitely. I was thinking about that as everyone was chatting, you know, why perhaps Sancerre hasn't taken off in the same way Chablis has. And I think really actually what it comes down to might be that as a nation, Australia is very used to and very comfortable with spending money on Chardonnay. You know, we have great top-end Chardonnay, we have Chardonnay in lots and lots of different styles, and people are prepared to spend upwards of $50 to $200 a bottle on a bottle of Chardonnay, which is essentially what Chablis is. So for people to then make that jump to buying imported wines, are always more expensive here. It's the follies of the tax system, unfortunately. But I think people are already ready to spend money on Chardonnay. Whereas I think as a wine culture in Australia, we have only ever seen Sauvignon Blanc as an entry-level wine. So, you know, people will spend 30, maybe 40, possibly 50 if they're going to get a Takoko or a Dog Point Section 94 or something. But that kind of, there isn't that association with premium wine. So when you present Sancerres to people, it's harder for people to make that mental jump financially to dropping 50 to $100 on a great bottle of Sancerre, which they would quite happily do on a bottle of Chablis or Chardonnay, because we just don't have the history of seeing Sauvignon Blanc as a prestigious grape. We see it as a smasher, really.
That's a really good point, Clara, because I've definitely said before when I've tried other whites, like, oh, it was nice, but I would only spend that kind of money on a Chardonnay. So I've actually said that before. Yeah, definitely a good point.
We tend to, we do have an anchor when it comes to Sauvignon Blanc, and I think we've been trained to have that anchor.
It's a cheap wine, that's what we think. Yeah, it's
also because, you know, because of the way we grow wines and talk about wines, it's varietal based. So when you talk about wines in Europe, you talk about Sancerre or Chablis, no one ever mentions the grape variety. So I think that's always a really key point as well. We, you know, you would no more, a French person, for example, would no more associate Sancerre with New Zealand Sauvignon Blanc than they would Sancerre with Bordeaux. You know, like it's just, that's not the way, it's not the way the language works. It's not the way the kind of associations work. So I think to a certain extent, that makes it harder for Sauvignon Blanc over here as well.
I very, very, very much agree. It's in our training. It's how we've been trained. I'll just quickly give everyone the answer. I'm pretty sure everyone has got all their answers in. The answer was of course Vendange Tardive, which is a term from Alsace. They don't grow Sauvignon Blanc in Alsace. Pouilly Fumé is across the river from Sancerre, and Sauternes is where they make the sweet wines in Bordeaux, which have a percentage of Sauvignon Blanc in them. So answer 3. Congratulations to everyone who got that right. Now I'm just going to do a quick segue here, because we all know Sauvignon Blanc, love it or hate it, and I think a few of you have loved that last one, but we all kind of know some of the basics of Sauvignon Blanc. But I thought I'd just give a quick intro to the Chenin Blanc grape variety, and kind of the similarities and the differences, because it really is, it's quite geographically split within the Loire. And there's kind of this line where Sauvignon Blanc ends and Chenin Blanc starts. And there are similarities, but there are a lot of key differences. So, you know, both high acidity grape varieties, and of course, Sauvignon Blanc, we know that kind of grapefruit nettle nose, whereas the aromas and flavors you get from Chenin Blanc are definitely more that apple and pear. And for anyone who hasn't poured their glass of Vouvray, I encourage you to pour that now, and you will just smell that bruised apple, that bruised red apple. Sauvignon Blanc can be made in only really 2 styles. That doesn't make a sparkling wine. It's only dry or dessert wines, whereas the styles of Chenin Blanc are they're almost limitless. You can have sparkling, bone dry, incredibly super sweet dessert wines, off dry wines. And then of course, Sauvignon Blanc, you're meant to just consume it as soon as you can. The younger, the better. Whereas the aging potential of Chenin Blanc is considerably higher. So we're kind of moving up a notch here, I must say. So I'm now going to hand over to Clara, who's going to tell us about our Ouai Vouvray.
Thanks, Mark. Yeah, look, I think one of the, it was interesting. I was thinking about the differences between Sauvignon Blanc and Chenin Blanc, and I think probably where we are in the world in Vouvray and Sancerre, the differences are less pronounced there than they are when you consider those varieties anywhere else in the world, and that comes down to geography and that Tufo, that seam of Tufo limestone that Alistair was talking about. That's really fundamental to both varieties. But one of the things that really sets Vouvray and Chenin Blanc aside, I think, is the variety of styles that can be made. Huettes make sparkling wines as well, some really fantastic sparkling wines, as well as, and Chenin Blanc has a huge history as a sparkling base at various different quality levels. And then the wines can be off dry, they can be bone dry, as Mark said, all the way up to really sweet. So I think that's it's one of the most interesting things about Chenin. It's also one of the most challenging things about Chenin Blanc, I think, and particularly Vouvray. The producer we're looking at this evening, Hewitt, is quite a classical producer. I guess I don't think I'd be alone in saying they're generally widely regarded as the greatest Vouvray producer in existence. You know, they have an incredible history that dates back to the 1920s. One of the other amazing things about Hewitt is their viticulture, really one of the first domains in the Loire, and possibly, you know, one of the first domains really that we know of to take on biodynamics with such kind of full force. They've been biodynamic since the 1980s, which is, you know, really quite remarkable to have that kind of history of biodynamics in an estate. It's something we talk about a lot now. It's very common, particularly among the prestigious estates. It's a fantastic method of farming, but it's very rare that you see people whose vineyards have been biodynamic for 40 years. And one of the other things that's really beautiful about Hewitt is prior to being biodynamic, the vineyards were fully organic anyway. Not that they would have called it organic, but they've never, the Hewitt vineyards have never seen a drop of herbicide or pesticide in their entire existence, which is really quite remarkable. I can tell you a little bit about the history of Domaine Hewitt as well, because I just think it's really interesting. Gaston Hewitt, who is the son of the founder Victor, is really one of two key figures that drove biodynamics through the estate. So it was Gaston and Noel Pingway. Noel Pingway was Gaston Hewitt's son-in-law. Together, they really made Hewitt the domain it is today. They have three main vineyards, Hewitt. The vineyard we're going to look at tonight, which is Le Haut-Lieu, the one on the bottle label of the screenshot we've got, and also the vineyard we're going to be tasting tonight. They also, so that was the original vineyard. So it was 2 hectares and it was purchased by Victor Hewitt in the 1920s, or inherited actually, I think, rather than purchased. And then in the 50s, Gaston and Noel purchased their other 2 vineyards, which were called Clos de Bourg and Le Mont. Clos de Bourg is probably the most famous of those vineyards. I don't know. I think probably they're equal, maybe, to people who love Vouvray. Yeah, so that's a cool little map, just showing you whereabouts they are. So maybe actually I should just, now seeing that map, maybe I should just backtrack a little bit and just talk briefly about where Vouvray is. So it is, if we were driving from Sancerre, it'd probably take you about 2 hours. So it's about 2 hours west of Sancerre, and the vineyards of Vouvray surround the city of Tours. So Tours is quite a decent sized city, and Vouvray is up on the hills behind that. One of the defining characteristics of Vouvray is really the presence of that tuffeau limestone that Alistair was talking about at the beginning. It's what allows Chenin Blanc to be truly great in a region which has lots of sand and lots of gravel. And I'm not saying that those alluvial soils can't make great wines, but it's the tuffeau limestone that really provides the backbone of minerality that makes these wines what they are, and also gives them the ability to age that they have. Vouvray is known for having, you know, some of the most long-lived white wines in the world, I'd say. You could 50, 60 years from a bottle of Vouvray pretty comfortably, which for a white wine is, you know, a remarkably long time. Today, Hewitt, so Gaston Hewitt sadly passed away in 2002, so that was about 10 years ago now. And at that point, Noel Pingway sought some financial backing, and a New York business family came on board, the Huangs. And today, the estate is managed by Sarah Huang, who's the president, and the winemaker is Benjamin Jovilou, who was handpicked by Noel Pingway back in the early 2000s and has been working with them and also a guy called Jean-Bernard Berton, who was the viticulturalist and winemaker at Huet from 2000, well, from the 80s all the way, before the 80s actually, from the 70s all the way up to his retirement at the end of 2019. So the history there and the consistency in terms of the stuff is really quite remarkable. We're talking about Vouvray wines. I mean, everyone just go ahead and taste what you've got because it's a stunning wine. I actually have to confess, I don't have the same wine as you guys, but I do have a Huet to taste. So the wine you're tasting tonight is the Haute-Lieu, so the Vineyard Haute-Lieu, Demi-Sec from 2016. So what I might do is just quickly talk about the different, they're not called predicats in the Loire. What are they called, Mark? The sweetness levels. Do they have a name?
Sweetness levels, yeah.
Okay, so the different sweetness levels.
That makes the most sense.
Because that's really important to Vouvray. That it can be tricky. Not all Vouvray producers choose to put the level of sweetness on the bottle. And then you really have to understand the producer and what they do when you're buying that wine to know whether it's going to be bone dry or actually have 30, 40 grams of residual. Huet is more classical in that they do indicate the sweetness level on the bottle. So anything that is labeled sec, for anyone who doesn't know, that is essentially means dry. So that will be a dry style with next to no residual sugar. So it'll be racy, dry, complex, mineral, but there won't be any element of sweetness there. Demi-sec, which is what we're tasting tonight, is what it sounds like. So half dry, technically, and well, the translation would be half dry. We would say off dry, probably. And those wines can have between 10 and 20 grams per litre of residual. So when you're tasting these wines, obviously I haven't got that one in front of me, but I have got a demi-sec. The sweetness appears much, much lower than that, and that's because the acid is so high. So it's really just that kind of sense of texture and energy and that moorishness that the little bit of sweetness brings with the demi-sec wines. And then after that, we move on to Moya, which means sweet. So they're the sweeter styles. They're kind of 30 grams residual upwards. And then we have Moya Premier Tree, which refers to the first picking of the botrytis berries as they pass through the vineyards. So they're the main sweetness levels for Vouvray. If you're out buying Vouvray, look out for those things. You'll get to know which styles you like best. For me, demi-sec is just the kind of the essence of what Vouvray is all about, really. I just love the complexity that the demi-sec wines offer.
Yeah.
I absolutely adore these wines, and I find it's this is the wine buyer's perspective here. So you know, this might not be everyone's experience, but I'm finding that almost across the board, sweet wines or sweeter wines are really just being they're just not being followed anymore. They're not being drunk anymore. Rosé for a long time was kind of the last bastion of sweet wines, and that's been really cleaned up. The first question everyone asks is this a dry rosé? It's just really become so clear that sugar is the enemy, and it should be done away with as much as possible. But there are two exceptions in my mind, and that's, as Clara hinted at before, the Predikat system within German Riesling and these guys here. I will often choose a demi-sec over a sec if I'm at a restaurant, especially. Exactly the same with German Riesling. I'll usually go for an Auslese over Trocken, and it is just it's because the balance of these wines is so exceptional. The acidity is so high, and that sweetness really rounds out the wine. Yeah, just absolutely adore these wines.
Yeah. Clara, I don't know if you saw the chat box. There is a lot of love going on for the Huet at the moment, which is good to see. And the great thing is, Clara and I have discussed we can get full-size bottles of this wine, so that's all good as well.
The half does not go anywhere near enough.
There's quite a few comments just about the funkiness as well. I might just touch on that because I think it's something that's very common with Loire wines, and particularly common with Chenin Blanc and Cabernet Franc. The wines, they often have this kind of inherent wet earth, mushroom, kind of really quite occasionally kind of animal character to them, which will be more overt upon opening, and then the fruit and the freshness and everything else seems to kind of come through after a little while. Particularly, I think the other thing to just bear in mind is this wine you've got this evening, it does already have a little bit of age on it. Like, it's 2016, it's a 5-year-old white. I would say with any wine with more than a year on it, generally really needs time just to recover from being hit by oxygen for the first time in however many years. So yeah, it's great to see everyone seeing it blow off. I actually have a bottle of, so the Loire vineyard that you guys are tasting, so that generally creates the wines that are the roundest and the most supple out of the 3 Huet vineyards. So it has the deepest soils out of the 3 sites, and actually quite a lot of brown clay, which will give you this kind of generosity, but also allow the wines to be drunk at relative youth. And that's, I'm not saying by any means that the Loire vineyard doesn't age at all, but what I'm saying is that they can become accessible a little bit younger than sometimes Clos de Bourg or Le Mans can be, because Le Mans is really, really super stony and very rocky and creates very tight mineral styles. And Clos de Bourg has very little topsoil over pretty much a complete limestone bedrock, which those wines are brilliant, but they can take quite a long time to come around. One thing I just say is that, so I've got a half bottle of the demi-sec from Clos de Bourg from 1981, which I bought myself as a birthday present and have never tried. And you can see the color, it looks really, really developed, but the freshness is absolutely unbelievable. It's a baby. It's a 40-year-old wine and it's a complete baby. So yeah, they are remarkable white wines.
Amazing. Well, it seems like we could keep on going on this wine for a long period of time. It is delicious, but unfortunately we're losing track of time slightly. And we had Matthew, who's just joined us, so we'd like to get his thoughts. So Mark, what I'm going to ask you to do is just launch the quiz question. If you can text in and give us your thoughts, we'd love to hear them. But Mark, I'll give you the quiz question. If I've got you. No, it looks like you're on mute.
Sorry about that. As we said, the most common comment of 2020. You're on mute. So this quick question here is our second question. So grab your phones in and get a text in. So Cabernet Franc, which is the grape variety we're going to be focusing on next, is the parent of which other grape variety? So Cabernet Sauvignon famous from Bordeaux, Blaufränkisch, which is in kind of Austria, or Ruby Cabernet, which you find in South Africa. So I'm just losing my camera here. There we go. That's better.
Clara, thank you so much for that. Sorry to interrupt you slightly short there. Matthew, I'm keen to get your thoughts on the Vouvray. Have you tried this wine? And presumably you've tried many of the Huet wines.
And you're on mute, mate. Just gonna try and ask to unmute here.
There we go.
There we go.
Okay, that's fine. Hello, everyone.
There we go. Hello.
Good morning for me. Good evening for you. Yes, I was a wine trainee at the UAT State in 1996. So I had the chance to taste and many wines from this beautiful winery. And I had the chance because I worked with Mr. Huet, Noël Pinguet, so the old staff, and I know quite well the new staff as well, and the wines are beautiful. I still have a lot of them in my cellar, included I think a bottle of 1919 from Huet.
Wow.
Whoa.
When are you going to dust the cobwebs off that one and open it up?
Yes, I have to find the good occasion to do it now.
I think that wine might be the occasion itself, mate. That's oof.
We'll see.
Amazing. So Jane, I think we've probably given about a minute then. Well done to
Lots of answers
everybody.
in there.
Go on
I
then,
think there might
Mark.
be a few right answers in that one. For those of you who did not know, Cabernet Franc, when it was matched with Sauvignon Blanc, created Cabernet Sauvignon. So you've got the Cabernet from Cabernet Franc and the Sauvignon from Sauvignon Blanc. So the the bookend varieties we're trying this evening are both the parents of Cabernet Sauvignon.
Fantastic. And that is a brilliant introduction to Mathieu, who's going to take us into wine number 3 from Chinon. So Mathieu, perhaps you could start by kind of explaining a bit of the history of the domain first, and then take it away with the actual wine.
Okay. So Bernard Baudry is a family estate located in Chinon, so into the Loire Valley. My parents, they have created this winery in 1975, and I have joined them about 20 years ago now, 2001. We grow Cabernet Franc. 95% of our vineyard is Cabernet Franc. We do a bit of Chenin Blanc as well, the same grape than in Vouvray. So there's an appellation Chinon Blanc as well. The vineyard, we have a huge diversity of grounds, of terroir, of soils into the family estate. We grow some vines into the valley. There are some alluvial soils. We grow some vines from limestone soils, from the slopes, but also from the plateau. And we like to vinify separately each of these grounds, each of these terroirs, with the kind of same viticultural, the same philosophy. All is managed organically, all is picked by hand. But we like that the wines they show some specificity of each grounds they come from.
Have we still got you, Mathieu?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm still here. I don't know if you need more information about the winery or.
Yeah, please go on. We're just showing a map here.
Yeah, we're just going to show kind of the terroir of where you are.
Yes. Yes, you can see, yes, the vineyard. And what is nice, if you can just stop the zoom, is behind the bottle, you have this huge forest, which is great. Without that forest, I think the Cabernet Franc won't ripe as well at what he does now. And that's a kind of fence against the cold influence of east wind, northeast wind. So that forest that we call the forest from Chinon is very important. And then you can see the river at the bottom. Sorry, I have to dezoom.
Yeah.
There the Vienne River, and after the forest, there the Loire River as well. So I would say that Chinon has a kind of temperated microclimate because of the presence of the forest and of all these rivers, Vienne, la Loire, l'Indre. You can see the Indre as well. So I would say it's never too cold. It's never too hot in my region.
So Matthew, if I could just ask you, so where you are located is kind of one of the northernmost extensions of where you make red wine within France. Obviously, further to the south is Bordeaux. There's plenty of red there, but with you guys on both sides, the wine growing regions tend to specialize in white wines. You know, you've got Muscadet to the west, Chenin Blanc, Sauvignon Blanc to the east. You seem to be this kind of little outpost that can still grow that can grow red grapes. Is this what are the biggest challenges for growing red wine and making red wine for you there?
I would say that it's the phenolic ripeness is not so easy with the Cabernet Franc. You have to get the right conditions. Of course, the right conditions of because of the climate, but the right conditions because of the soil as well, because of the terroir. So I was talking about the importance of the forest. But also the exposure. We are located on the right bank of the Vienne River. The slope is south facing, so ripeness is of course better than when you are. Yes, that's the perfect picture to see that. So that helps when you look at La Croix-Boissée, for example, or Le Clos Guillot. They are self-exposed, so well drained, and the phenolic ripeness is nice. Into the valley, it's a bit different. We have to be careful because those soils are. It's a bit cooler in this valley. We can get frost problem, and we can get some problem with the phenolic ripeness. So we try to control the yields. We try to control the ripeness. We have to wait maybe sometimes a week more or 10 days more after the picking of the vines from the slopes.
Yeah, I must say I have to say thank you very much for this amazing picture that you've got on your website that we very shamelessly have stolen for this evening. It's very rare that we get to put an image like this that is just so descriptive of exactly where you guys are and what your soil types are and where your vineyards are exactly. It's such a great representation of the soil types. It's fantastic. As a soil nerd myself, I must say.
Thank you. Merci. Yes, it's very important. We like to show how the soil is important, and when you taste the wine, I like to feel something about the grounds. That's the goal, and we like to show that there's Cabernet Franc, there's Chinon, that's Bernard Baudry, but the soil makes a different texture, different flavors, and we like to show that to get a real transparency on the soil in the wine. And sometimes I like people who taste the wines and they forget. They forget that they are tasting a Cabernet Franc. They are tasting something like smokiness or chalky tannins, and they forget the grape variety is just the transmission. It's just the way to bring the minerals, the elements directly in the wine. And for me, the great terroir. When you plant vines on great terroir, sometimes you forget what's the grape variety, the importance of the grape variety.
I'll just make my 2 cents on this one. I must say, we here in Australia and even in New Zealand, I would say we can't make wines like this. We don't really have the climate, and obviously the soils are quite different here in Australia, but we just don't really make wines that are like this at all. Our wines tend to be very fruit forward, whereas I find this wine is incredibly we've been saying that the words here, barnyards. I get a huge amount of graphite that kind of slight greenness, that leafiness that Cabernet Franc is known for. But that real clean graphite, like pencil lead, which is just amazing. It's so hard it would be almost impossible for us to replicate anything like this here in Australia. And it's just fascinating to see it against kind of the wines that we would drink day to day.
Yeah. Mark, I'm really keen to open the floor and just whilst we've got 5 more minutes or so, get some feedback on this one. So I'm going to pick on some people. Peter, we haven't heard from you this evening. What are your thoughts on this one?
Hello, everyone. Well, the first thing that strikes you is the colour here. It's just a wonderful deep colour. I love the sort of the earthiness that comes out with the fruit. Very drinkable wine. I love this. And just harking back, the whole evening has been absolutely tremendous, I think, tonight. I was curious about the discussion about the Sancerre. It is weird because it's not a wine that I grew up with. But on the other hand, we always had plenty of Pouilly Fumé in the cellar that we were drinking. So I think there's a marketing issue there somehow with the Sancerre. I don't understand it because it's a fantastic wine.
Just a quick caveat, and this was something that I always used to get tripped up when I was learning about wine. There's one of the big tricks in wine is there's Pouilly Fumé and Pouilly Fussé, and they get mixed up a lot.
Yeah, they're very different.
Very, 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 very different. So yeah.
And the thing I can't understand is this downgrading of Sauvignon Blanc. I mean, you think about the most famous white wine in the world, Chateau d'Yquem. It's Semillon Sauvignon Blanc. I mean, I just don't understand why there's some marketing issues there or perception issues that are crazy. Love the Vouvray like everybody else has. That is the oldest bottle in my wine cellar, one I inherited from my dad. I have a bottle of 1923.
Wow.
So
Nice.
I'm trying to hold out for another 2 years to open it in time.
Anniversary. I'll be there, Pete. No worries, I'll be there.
Well, when everything... Sorry, Pete, carry on.
Just a fantastic night. 3 really wonderful wines.
When everything opens up again, maybe either Matthew, you can fly over here, or Pete, you can fly over to Chinon, and you can do a back-to-back 1919 and 1923. How good!
It's just a few pictures here of the cellar as well that we found on the website there. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's the cave, yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So Matthew, with this image in front of us, I think it'd probably be a good time to talk about aging. With a wine like this, what will it do with, say, 10 or 15 years worth of aging?
It depends on the wine that you have from my range of wine, but the wine that you are tasting, the domain is not a wine to lay down for 10 years. It's a wine to drink within the 5 years. It's quite elegant, it's quite balanced, but it's not as rich as bodied to last 10 or 20 years. But some vines, mostly located into the slopes, into the limestone rock, the same limestone that you can see in those pictures, they can last 20 years, 25 years easily, and they keep the freshness, they keep the nice balance. Of course, the flavors are transformed, they get more earthy, you can get more sous-bois, leather, smell, but the balance is still there, and the wines are still lively after all these years.
They definitely have the acidity and the tannin that you would expect that they're going to be going for a long time. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Danny, what are your thoughts on these and the previous two?
Hello. I've enjoyed all the wines tonight. All 3 have been very different. But yeah, I'm enjoying this style. Very has enjoyed it more than the sense there. No, beautiful wines and very drinkable. And we've been having them all with food. I think they've all been food wines for me. So very enjoyable.
Matthew, talking of dogs, I was reading some information on your wines, and one of your principal vineyards is, if I'm right in saying, Cémetery aux Chiens, which is the dog graveyard. Is that right? And is there a story there?
How do you know that?
A research. I should, yeah.
We call it Cuvée Domaine and not Cimetière aux Chiens because of this strange word. No, we can't find the explanation about that. Probably a dog's cemetery. I don't know, but it's such a long story of a lieu-dit name in France that. It comes probably for a few centuries, so no, impossible to tell you the explanation. But that's a nice place.
Yeah, nice. Well, if anyone's smelling wet dog on the nose, then you probably can.
Better than dead dog, yeah. So Peter's just asked a very quick question of you, Mathieu. You are obviously, as I said, you're one of the northernmost growing regions of red wine. We've had some press here in Australia about how bad the frosts were in the last couple of last month or so. Have you been hit pretty hard by the frosts?
Not that much. We feel quite lucky because we get yes, very cold conditions, but not as cold as in Anjou or in Vouvray or Montlouis. So it's too early to tell because it's not ended already. There are still one more week or 2 weeks to resist. But I think I have less than 10% of the production affected. But we spent 2 hard weeks, and I have some protections. I light some candles, not into the church, in the vineyards. And I use blowers, I use spraying system. So yes, with my employees, with the whole team, we spent a very short night fighting, but today we feel okay.
Brilliant. Well, that's really good news because I think lots of people are enjoying these and are interested to try the upcoming vintages. Now, with that takes us to, and thank you, I should say, Matthew, for your insights. They're really, really interesting. That takes us to the Wheel of Wine. So I'm just going to share my screen here. Well done to everybody who got 3 correct answers. It's a pretty well populated one, so it looks like people have done pretty well. I'm going to give it a spin, so good luck.
I did go a little bit easy on you guys. I get criticized by Luke and Jane for my difficult questions, so
Oh, Justin.
Justin, beautiful.
Do we have Justin in the gallery view that we can see?
Let's put his camera on.
Justin, can you give us a cheers if you're in there?
Comes. Hey.
There we go.
There he is.
Congrats.
Congratulations.
I hope you like my background as well. Cheers.
Very nice.
Perfect. It's perfect.
And fantastic. Well done, Justin. We'll be in contact with you. Well done. Brilliant. Well, I think that caps off a really, really interesting evening. Thank you so much to our guests. Of course, if you are interested in revisiting these wines, they're all up on the screen there. We've got pretty good stock. And again, as I said, of the Huet, we do have the 750ml option there as well. Also, Clara and I have been discussing a couple of more options from Huet, which I'll send some information on tomorrow if you're keen to explore more of their Chenin's. And of course, we have the Chinon there to look at as well. So please get in contact if you'd be interested in having a look at those. Just to check off a couple of other bits that we've got going on at United Cellars. If you've enjoyed this tasting and are keen to come to more, we've got some really, really interesting ones on the calendar. Mark, if you can just move us on one there. Brilliant. So next week, we've got the long-awaited Rhone tasting, which I personally can't wait for. I think that's going to be a really, really good one. On Thursday, the 27th, we've got International Chardonnay Day. So we're celebrating that with some that you might not have tried before, which will be quite interesting. And then finally, I know Pete is really looking forward to this one. We've got the wines of Greece to look forward to. So
Pete was signed up to this one before we had even built it. He was ready to go.
So we can, if you're Sydney based or New South Wales based, we can still get you a pack out on the Rhone tasting. And then obviously we've got tons more time with the other two. So get yourself signed up if you'd like to. And then also, as we're seeing more and more in-person events happen, we've got a couple of really exciting ones. Firstly, if Barossa, and probably the best Barossa Shiraz is your bag, we've got a tasting with Torbrek on the Laird and the Runrig. Mark, I believe you tried these when you were in Barossa.
I had the great pleasure of trying the new Laird down in the Barossa with the Torbrek team, and I mean, this wine does not disappoint, obviously, but this is a particularly good vintage. Yeah, we got a tour of the vineyard, which is just unbelievable, an unbelievable piece of land. Yeah, our Grand Cru, I would say.
Amazing. And then Tuesday tutorials, natural and organic wines on the 6th. And finally, age in wine on the 3rd. So that will be really, really good. But from me and all the team, thank you so much for coming. I should say again, thank you to Clara, really interesting, and again to Matthew. Guys, any last comments? Mark, Jane, Clara, Matthew, anything that you'd like to add to our tasting?
Thanks for coming, everyone. This was, I really enjoyed this one. This was very informative, kind of pushes people outside of their comfort zone, learn a few more things about Sauvignon Blanc, kind of bring back the Blanc. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Cheers, Mark. And again, thank you, Clara and Matthew. I know you guys are super busy, so really appreciate your insights there. So look forward to seeing you soon. Look out for the text message that we'll send this tomorrow morning, and obviously the email with regards to the Huet. And look forward to seeing you back again next Thursday. All the best.
See you next week, team.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.